Imagine a world where a father's darkest secret is hidden behind closed doors, his actions so sinister that they would ultimately cost a young girl her life, a seemingly perfect life, a father, a daughter, and a quiet suburban town. But hidden beneath that image was a web of lies, a dangerous affair, and a brutal murder. In today's story, we dive into the twisted tale of a father's secret relationship with a 19-year-old cheerleader, and how it spiraled into a tragic and irreversible end. What went wrong? Who's to blame? And how did this family fall apart in such a devastating way? But hold on. This story isn't what it seems at first glance. Stay with me till the end, because the truth will shock you. Our story begins in a typical American town, a picturesque neighborhood. A loving father, Jim Hargrove, a well-respected man, known in his community for his charming personality and involvement in local affairs. He had the perfect family, a wife, 2 children, and a home that seemed like it came out of a magazine. To outsiders, Jim was the epitome of success, every parent's dream. But as we know, appearances can be deceiving. Behind closed doors, things were far from perfect. Jim's wife, Anna, had started noticing changes in her husband, late nights at work, unexplained absences. Little did she know, these excuses were hiding something far darker. And it all began with a young cheerleader named Emily. Emily was just 19, young, ambitious, and full of life. A cheerleader at the local college, she was the embodiment of youthful energy. Jim's path crossed hers during one of his frequent visits to the campus. A friendly conversation turned into something more. A secret affair was born from there. Jim had crossed a line that, once crossed, would never allow him to go back to the life he once knew. As the relationship progressed, Jim's actions grew bolder, his riskier decisions taking hold. He thought he could control it, that no one would find out. But as with all secrets, they come to the surface eventually, and when they do, the consequences are catastrophic. As time passed, Jim's affair with Emily grew more intense, and yet his family remained in the dark. His wife, Anna, noticed small things, a shift in his behavior, an almost unexplainable distance between them. But she never suspected the truth. What she didn't know was that Emily had become more than just an affair to Jim. She had become his obsession. He began to isolate her from his family, pulling her deeper into his web of lies. Emily, though still young and naive, also had her own demons, feelings of loneliness, confusion, and an unhealthy dependence on Jim's attention. It was a powder keg waiting to explode. Emily had begun to threaten Jim, saying that she would expose their relationship. Jim, realizing the delicate nature of his situation, grew more desperate. But would he go as far as to silence her forever? Jim Hargrove never intended for things to spiral out of control. What started as a harmless flirtation, a secret escape from his seemingly perfect life, quickly turned into something far more dangerous. Emily, the 19-year-old cheerleader, was everything Jim's wife was not. Young, full of energy, and willing to give him the attention he craved. This was no longer just an affair. It was forbidden passion. The kind of passion that blinds you to reason, to morality, and to the inevitable consequences of your actions. In the secrecy of their meetings, Jim and Emily lost themselves in the thrill of it all. They thought they could keep their world hidden, locked away in the shadows. But nothing stays secret forever. Emily began to demand more time, more attention, and most dangerously, more promises. She wanted more from Jim than just a fleeting affair. She wanted him to choose her over his family. She threatened to expose everything, to tear apart the carefully constructed world Jim had built. And that's when everything started to fall apart. The passion that had once been intoxicating now became a powder keg. Emily, feeling betrayed by the lies, and Jim, desperate to protect his family and his future, were on a collision course. A violent confrontation was inevitable. In a moment of sheer panic and rage, the passion that had once ignited their affair now led to Emily's tragic end. And just like that, a forbidden love had turned deadly, leading to murder. The affair between Jim Hargrove and Emily had crossed every boundary imaginable, ethical, moral, and legal. What began as an illicit relationship, hidden in the shadows, had grown to something far darker. And in the dangerous game they were playing, there was always a risk that the consequences would be fatal. As Emily grew more emotionally invested in Jim, the power dynamics of their relationship shifted. No longer just a secret lover, she was now demanding something deeper, something irreversible. Jim, on the other hand, was becoming increasingly paranoid. The fear of exposure haunted him every single day. His life, the life he'd built with Anna and his children, was on the verge of falling apart. What began as a crime of passion, two people chasing forbidden desires, turned into a catastrophic fallout. Emily, feeling betrayed and cornered, threatened to expose their affair. Jim, his mind clouded with fear and guilt, couldn't see a way out. He feared losing everything, his career, his family, his freedom. In a moment of heated confrontation, a moment where emotions took control over reason, Jim's worst instincts took over. The argument turned violent, and what had started as an affair spiraled into murder. A crime of passion, where love, betrayal, and fear collided in the most tragic of ways. The fallout was swift and unforgiving. Jim, now a murderer, could no longer hide behind his carefully constructed lies. Emily's life was over, and with it, so was the illusion of Jim's perfect world. The passion that had once driven them now destroyed everything in its wake. At the heart of this devastating story is a young woman, Emily, the 19-year-old cheerleader whose life seemed filled with promise, hope, and the potential of youth. Yet she found herself tangled in a dangerous affair with a man who was much older, a man whose public persona as a loving husband and father was nothing but a facade. Emily wasn't just a college student or a cheerleader. She became Jim Hargrove's secret world. She was the one he confided in, the one who made him feel desired and alive again. But as their relationship grew, so did the risks. Jim's affection for Emily, once a simple affair, transformed into something far more consuming and dangerous. Emily, sensing the power she held over him, began to demand more. She pushed Jim further, asking for a commitment he could never give, threatening to expose their secret to the world. But what seemed like an act of desperation on her part became the catalyst for a terrifying turn of events. In the moment when Emily felt like she had lost control, she chose to take matters into her own hands. She would no longer be silenced. But in that very same moment, Jim's fear of losing everything overtook his sense of right and wrong. He saw only one way to protect his life, and it would come at the cost of Emily's. The affair, the passion, the lies, they all culminated in one shocking and irreversible act. A murder. One that would change the lives of everyone involved and expose the dark, dangerous depths of Jim's double life. Jim Hargrove wasn't just a man caught up in an affair. He was a father, a husband, a man with everything to lose. But beneath the surface of his family life, beneath the image of the loving father, Jim harbored dark desires. Desires that led him down a path of deceit, manipulation, and ultimately, murder. It's easy to imagine a father as a protector, a man who would do anything for his children. But in Jim's case, his desires were far more selfish and destructive. The love he once had for his wife, Anna, had faded into complacency. He yearned for excitement, for passion, for someone who could make him feel alive again. And that someone came in the form of Emily, the 19-year-old cheerleader. What began as a brief escape from the monotony of his family life quickly turned into an obsession. Emily was no longer just a mistress. She was the one thing that seemed to fill the void inside him. But with his affair came a web of lies. He had to deceive his wife, his children, and everyone around him to keep his secret life hidden. But deceit, as we know, always has a cost. And in this case, that cost was far more than Jim could ever have imagined. His love for Emily, tangled in lies and betrayal, turned into a destructive force that would shatter everything he had built. The death of a young woman, Emily's murder, was the inevitable fallout of Jim's unchecked desires. The tragedy here isn't just that Emily lost her life, it's that a father, someone who was supposed to protect his family, allowed his dark desires to cloud his judgment and destroy the very thing he once held dear. What began as a quiet suburban life quickly descended into a murder mystery that shook an entire family to its core. Jim Hargrove, a man once regarded as the picture of a devoted father and husband, had secretly been living a double life. And at the heart of it was Emily, the young, vibrant cheerleader who had no idea that her involvement with Jim would become the catalyst for one of the most shocking betrayals in the community's history. When Emily's body was discovered, the small town was left in a state of disbelief. Who could have done such a thing? How could a family that seemed so perfect harbor such a dark secret? The answer wasn't immediately clear, but as investigators began to dig deeper into Emily's life, it quickly became evident that this was no random crime. This was not a senseless act of violence. It was a carefully orchestrated crime of passion. The affair between Emily and Jim was not just an illicit fling, it was a ticking time bomb, and Emily's threat to expose their relationship was the trigger. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Texts, phone calls, and secret meetings, all pointing to a relationship filled with lies, manipulation, and deceit. But the real mystery? The chilling realization that the very person who should have been the protector of his family, Jim, was the one who destroyed it. How could a man who had everything to lose sink so low? What drove him to commit such a heinous act? The investigation unraveled this disturbing truth and turned Jim Hargrove's once respected life upside down, revealing a man consumed by guilt, fear, and a dangerous desire to keep his dark secret hidden at any cost. But the truth would not stay buried forever. The murder of Emily had shattered not just her life, but the foundation of the family she had once been so entangled with. This was a murder mystery like no other, where love, betrayal, and death collided in the most unexpected and tragic of ways. It's the kind of story that seems almost impossible. Young love, full of hope and possibility that ends in tragedy. But in this case, the love that blossomed between Emily and Jim was not innocent or pure. What started as a flirtation between a powerful older man and a young cheerleader quickly spiraled into a scandal that no one could have predicted. Emily, just 19, was at the beginning of what should have been a bright future. She had dreams, aspirations, and the whole world ahead of her. But in a twist of fate, she fell for Jim Hargrove, a married father with everything to lose. What seemed like the thrill of a forbidden romance quickly turned into something far darker. The excitement of their secret meetings, the passion that filled their stolen moments, blinded them both to the danger they were courting. Jim's promises of love and commitment grew more manipulative, while Emily's need for his attention turned into a desperate, all-consuming obsession. As the affair deepened, so did the emotional chaos. Emily's need for security and validation collided with Jim's fear of being exposed, both unable to see the devastating path they were heading down. What started as youthful rebellion and a scandalous affair between a man and a young woman who shouldn't have been together quickly turned deadly. When Emily threatened to expose their secret, everything began to unravel. In a moment of panic, jealousy, and fear, the young love that had once seemed so alluring ended in a brutal act of violence. A single decision, the murder of Emily, was the fatal consequence of their dangerous affair. What makes this tragedy even more heartbreaking is the fact that it didn't have to end this way. Emily's life was stolen by a scandalous love affair that turned deadly, proving that sometimes even the most passionate connections can destroy everything in their wake. As the final gavel fell in the courtroom and the truth was laid bare, the Hargrove family was forever changed. Jim, once a respected father and husband, was now a man marked by his own actions, a man who had allowed his darkest desires to destroy the people he loved most. His future was gone, and so was the life he once knew. But it wasn't just Jim who paid the price. The true victim in this story was Emily, the young cheerleader with a bright future, whose life was taken by the very person who was supposed to protect and care for her. Her family, forever scarred by the loss of their daughter, would never be the same. In the end, this isn't just a story of forbidden love gone wrong, or an affair that escalated into tragedy. It's a reminder that beneath the surface of every relationship, there are secrets. Some that can destroy lives, some that can shatter families. And when those secrets are exposed, the consequences are often far more devastating than anyone could have imagined. As we reflect on this heartbreaking tale, we are left to ask ourselves, what happens when passion clouds our judgment? When fear and jealousy take over, what lines are we willing to cross? And most importantly, how do we ever rebuild from the ruins of our own mistakes? Thank you for watching. If you've been affected by this story or similar tragedies, remember that help is always available. Don't let secrets destroy you. Stay vigilant, stay aware, and always choose love over fear.